Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Thursday, October 22nd, 2020, 10 a.m. Central, in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Not sunny, Lake Geneva. Beautiful nonetheless, despite the rain. Well, it's Thursday. That means it's GMing Tips Day. What sort of fun are we going to have today? Let's talk about who rolls the dice and when. Well, you know, the DMG doesn't is a set of guidelines. So anything it says, we can take with a grain of salt, right? So I did a little looking through the DMG. I mean, I know what I do, and I know I know why I do it. But I thought maybe I need a little refresher course. Maybe there are things of which I am forgetting that was good advice that I've ignored, or perhaps there is advice in there that permeates other games that other people just take for granted and don't question when maybe they could or should think about it at least and decide one way or another. Anywho, I think for this, let me do, what do I want to do? I want to bounce around in this book here. Or do I? You know what? I should start with conducting the game. Because I think, there we go. I think conducting the game, that section is the most straightforward about the advice that it gives. I mean, every now and then it says, do this, or a roll needs to be made, and it's ambiguous. But I think as far as straightforward advice on how things should go, this is it, right? Rolling the dice and control of the game. Who should roll the dice and when? In many situations, it is correct and fun to have players dice such things as melee hits or saving throws. However, it is your right to control the dice at any time and to roll dice for the players. You might wish to do this to keep them from knowing some specific fact. That's one of the most important lines, I think, when it comes to dice and who should roll them in all of the DMG. You might, I'll reread this, wish to do this to keep them from knowing some specific fact. And the permutations of that, we'll get back to it. You also might wish to give them an edge in finding a particular clue. A secret door that leads to a complex of monsters and treasures that will be especially entertaining. And we'll get back to that. Secret door? Okay. You do have every right to overrule the dice at any time if there is a particular course of events that you would like to have occur. In making such a decision, you should never seriously harm the party or a non-player character with your actions. Always give the monster an even break, says Gary. And I think he's saying that tongue-in-cheek. Hey, Hobbsy, how you doing? You might wonder about why that's all in caps. I think that's to put out the to point out the absurdity of it. Obviously, monsters never need a break. There are more of them than can fill boatloads of PCs. Does that mean something? I don't even know if that means anything. It is to say there's an endless supply of them. So if a monster is to die, its replacement can walk through the door and clock in and take up the next shift moments later. It's the DM's whim, right? Examples of dice rolls, which should always be made secretly, are listening, hiding in shadows, detecting traps, moving silently, finding secret doors, monster saving throws, and attacks made upon the party without their possible knowledge. Well, I think you'll notice a trend in the first 2/3 of that is toward thief abilities. We'll continue on. We're going to circle back on all of this because there's a lot of different areas, but I think it's worth going through this whole section before we pick it apart. And pick it apart in the best of all possible ways, because I think for the most part, things that I'll be saying will be expanding on ideas in here rather than naysaying them. So we'll see. There will be times in which the rules do not cover a specific action that a player will attempt. In such situations, instead of being forced to make a decision, take the option to allow the dice to control the situation. This can be done by assigning a reasonable probability to an event and then letting the player dice to see if he or she can make that percentage. You can weigh the dice in any way so as to give the advantage to either the player or the non-player character, which seems more correct and logical to you, while being fair to both sides, whichever seems more correct and logical to you. Now, and then, a player will die through no fault of his own. He or she will have done everything correctly, taken every reasonable precaution. But still, the freakish roll of the dice will kill the character. In the long run, you should let such things pass, as the players will kill more than one opponent with their own freakish rolls at some later time. Yet, you do have the right to arbitrate the situation. You can rule that the player, instead of dying, is knocked unconscious, loses a limb, is blinded in one eye, or invoke any reasonably severe penalty that still takes into account what the monster has done. It is very demoralizing to the players to lose a cared for player character when they have played well. When they have done something stupid or have not taken precautions, then let the dice fall where they may. Again, if you have available ample means of raising characters from the dead, even death is not too severe. Remember, however, the Constitution-based limit to resurrections. Yet one die roll that you should never tamper with, never capitalized, is the system shock roll. It will be raised, to be raised from the dead. Yet one die roll that you should never tamper with is the system shock roll to be raised from the dead. If a character fails that, which he or she should make him or herself, he or she is forever dead. There must be some final death, or immortality will take over, and again the game will become boring because the player characters will have 9+ lives each. All right. Feeling under the weather? Uh-oh. Don't say that, Hobbsy. That's a scary time. It's a scary time for that. Is it the kind of things where you should be off taking a test today? getting yourself checked out, because that better to know sooner than later for whatever help it can be. Plus, if you're going to be around other people, might be the thing to do, buddy. I don't like to say it because I don't relish the potential outcome, but better to know, my friend. Better to know. All right, going back and unpacking some of this here. Your right to control the dice at any time and to roll dice for the players. You can roll all the dice. I have run games in places where it really wasn't convenient to play a game. Sitting in a restaurant, waiting a long time for a crowded restaurant, for even the server to come by, let alone to eventually get the meal, and four of us sitting around wondering what to do. Hey, I'll run a game. Oh, really? I'll give you an overview of your character, and I'll have in my mind potential stats, roughly, and equipment. Will be a bit nebulous, but I've got some dice in my pocket. I always do. I always have some dice in my pocket. There's only one other person I know who always carries dice, which he calls a decider. And that's Tom Wom. That's how I knew when I first met him that we were going to wind up being gaming buddies, because he pulled out a die to make a decision. And I was like, yeah, there you go. I don't usually do it openly, but having dice in my pocket so that I could run a game on the fly if I wanted to, all in my head, rolling the dice for the players, it still works. As long as you can assign random things in your head and juggle all that stuff, you can do anything. You don't need any of the paperwork to run a D&D game. You do need some way to randomize things. Otherwise, it's not a game. You're just telling a story. And that's okay. But if it's going to be a game, there has to be random elements to it. You can't know in advance how it's going to end. Otherwise, it's not a game. Some people say, well, you got to have stories. Yeah, okay. But it's not a game if you know how it's going to end. Keep that in mind always. So, you might wish to do this to keep them from knowing a specific fact. So, too, you might wish to do this, to roll for the players, to keep them from knowing that they don't know a specific fact. Any number of things can come into play. There can be circumstances of which they are unaware, which could affect the die roll, and if they know what their hard percentage is, if they're rolling the die, well, I have a 46% chance of doing this, I'm going to roll 47, darn it. No, it worked, but I only have a 46. Oh, wait, there's something here, there's something more, there's something I don't know. They don't know that they don't know. In cases like this, you can't let them know that they don't know by letting them see the dice. So, too, I rolled a 45. Yep, I got it by 1. No, you didn't get it. But I got 46 chance, and I rolled a 45. Yeah, no. Oh, so there's something I should know that I don't know. Can't let it happen. And it doesn't add to the mystery. It ruins the mystery. It takes away from the mystery. They should be suspicious on their own already, first off, of almost everything. Because everything should be a danger. There should be an edge to every character if that character is going to survive. They should, not constantly maybe, But most of the time, they should be spider sense tingling mode. If you swing at somebody wearing plate mail and you roll enough to hit plate mail +3 and you don't hit, you're going to know something that you shouldn't know about that plate mail. Now, maybe it can be described. And this is where it gets tricky, because I don't know of almost any game except like the one I described at the restaurant where players are not going to be rolling their own melee attacks or their own saving throws. So there are certain situations where just the mere act of being involved should help them to realize that there's more than meets the eye. And this is how I justify the fact that they're going to gain information from rolling their own melee rolls or attacks, range attacks, or their own saving throws. They're going to potentially gain some information by virtue of knowing what their abilities are and what they should expect from what they can see and sense and know from what's in front of them. So that's okay. Yeah, Monday doesn't do it, buddy. From what little we know, it's a 14-day. I mean, you could be asymptomatic forever. You could carry and not know. You could not show symptoms for a week or a week and a half. I'll take the chance. If you're feeling some potential early symptoms, it's better to know sooner. There are places you can go grab a free test somewhere. It'd take a little time out of your day, but it's worth it for your peace of mind. Secret doors. Here's another thing. And I'm on both sides of this one, admittedly. You might also wish to give them an edge in finding a particular clue. A secret door that leads to a complex of monsters and treasures that will be especially entertaining. Sure, entertaining to them, entertaining to you, entertaining to everybody, but why'd you make it a secret door in the first place? If you definitely want them to find it, why is it secret in the first place? Right? This is the modern RPG argument. Almost every RPG, say this meaning Dungeons and Dragons and its closest relatives. I'm not talking about vampire and, other non-D&D-esque RPGs. So Pathfinder, all the retro clones. The modern sensibility is, if it's fun, we should do it. So why is a door secret? Is it secret as a... So I can see the argument where you might want something to seem as if it's secret, even though you know you're going to let the players find it, so that when they find it, they feel as if they found something that was secret. Interesting, right? It puts the player in a certain frame of mind, and it also suggests something. Hey George, how you doing? It also suggests something about what they're finding, and it explains in game why it hasn't been found perhaps until now. So there are reasons to have a secret door that you definitely want the players or player characters at least, to find. But you should know this going in. You should have determined when you place that secret door whether or not it's going to be found. And that's the wrong way to put that. If you definitely want that secret door to be found, when you place it, you should know that. That's the way to put it. There's certainly the possibility that you include some secret doors, which, if they get found, that's fine. If they don't get found, that's fine. No big deal either way. You're happy with the randomness of maybe they will, maybe they won't. But if you definitely want them to find one, and sure, you can make that call on the fly, right? If in a given moment during a game you feel as if it behooves you to allow a secret door to be found, even if it wasn't going to be necessarily, maybe they weren't looking in the first place, whatever, it's certainly okay for you to make that call during game, on the fly, extemporaneously. But a lot of times you should kind of have some sense of whether or not a secret door should be found when you put it on the map, when you decide it's there. Let's go on. There's a few other things here. You have every right to overrule the dice at any time if there is a particular course of events that you would like to have occur. There we go. In the moment, extemporaneously. It helps that the players don't know you're overruling the dice. It is very rare, I would say, that you want the players to be aware that you are making adjustment to the dice roll. In fact, in my opinion, it should be extremely rare that you would make a change to any dice roll in the first place. If you roll the dice, you should know in advance whether or not an outcome should be random or shouldn't be. Now, you can fake roll the dice and then just say, so that they believe that it's random. For all intents and purposes, it appears to have been random, even though you've determined ahead of time that it isn't. But you shouldn't roll the dice, see the outcome, and then decide to overturn it, because you should know whether or not something should be random before you roll the dice. Sometimes when I've played with, when I've been at the game store, for instance, and somebody is thinking, hey, do I want to get this game? Do I want to get that game? I can't decide. Should I get this one or that one? I tell them to take a die. Roll a die. Grab a die right from there. It's a 6-sider. 1, 2, 3. It's this one. 4, 5, 6. It's that one. They roll it. They look at the die. And you can see they're disappointed. And you know in that moment that they had actually already made up their mind. And I explained this to them. I say, you look disappointed. You wanted the other one, didn't you? You rolled as if you couldn't decide. But you're disappointed in that result. So in your heart, you know now that you definitely wanted the other one. So just get the other one. Sometimes the die roll just reveals to you, when you have a tough decision to make, where your heart truly was on that decision. However, when you're running a game, you should know in advance whether or not you want something to be random most of the time. And maybe all the time. Tough to say. Not everybody's mind works the same way. So let's leave an opening. Always give the monster an even break. It's an absurdist statement. We went over that. Example of dice rolls which should always be made secretly. Listening, hiding in shadows, detecting traps, moving silently, right? Because do you know if you're successful? Well, you'll know if the consequences show that you failed, um, and sometimes you won't know that. So let's say you fail a die roll, but you're sneaking up on somebody. But what if they're a particularly cagey opponent and they realize you're there, but they don't want you to know they realize you're there? So maybe you're going in for the backstab and they're going to make a sudden move in the last moment so that you've committed yourself. So you can't just say, "Oh, I was just kidding. I was just sneaking up and just to see if you're paying attention." No, no, no. Can't get away with that. Hey, Major Victory, how you doing? Yep, exactly. The coin flip tells you all. Finding secret doors, we just had a discussion about that. Monster saving throws, you know, if you want them to roll, if you want them to save or you want them to fail, you can fake a roll, but you should know before you roll whether or not you're going to overrule a die. And if you are, just know in advance you're just going to say it's this way or that way. The attacks made upon the party without their possible knowledge. Sure, secret attacks can always happen, right? Always times to cover a specific situation. Yep, we talked about that. I think that's pretty self explanatory that assigning reasonable probability, reasonable being the optimal word there, that you definitely want to try to be reasonable when you're assigning random chance to some game circumstance or situation. So keep that in mind when you're adjudicating something and allowing the dice to determine the consequences, and feel free to have a little discussion about it. It's okay. Well, what possible outcomes are there? I see this and this and this. And then maybe the player is driving towards something or is afraid of something, which can be fun. Oh, I just hope it doesn't happen to be this. Oh, yeah, there's a percentage chance of that too. So we'll add that to the list of things, and then you roll the dice. There's a 4% chance that that horrible outcome happens, and then another 16% chance that this kind of bad thing could happen. Then another 30 that's something else. But 50%, all good for you. So don't roll low. It's always fun to say that before somebody rolls, just so that if they roll low, it looks like it was your fault. Or they'll blame you anyway. So you might as well enjoy it. You can rule that a player is. Yeah, the dying thing. First edition, characters dying in the first few levels. Just let it happen. It keeps the stakes high for the rest of the game, the rest of the campaign. You don't want to be overruling death. Some things you want to say are part of the game, in my opinion. I like them in my game. I like those harsh consequences to have a potential seat at the table. So I don't overrule death. As soon as they get to higher levels and things like resurrection are available. Now, of course, in first edition, if you're an elf, somebody said I added flump to reincarnation tables. Yeah, and it made me think, oh, here's a guy with an elf, and his only recourse to coming back with that character is through reincarnation. And what if he comes back as a flump? Not good for him. Anywho, I think we've covered most of this stuff pretty well here, so let us say that we're going to shut her down. I want to thank everybody for stopping by today, for following the channel, for chiming in on the stream chat if you did. Appreciate it very much. I also want to say, if you are catching this up on YouTube, please do subscribe. Give a little thumbs up to any videos you watch. I'd appreciate it. Don't forget tomorrow's Building Adventures GM reviews on Saturday, Rules Retrospective on Sunday. We've got weekly news and announcements on Monday. Cartography and world building on Tuesday, campaign discussion on Wednesday. Back around the horn to GM tips next Thursday. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.